Welcome to Determine Out Loud, our podcast series that's all about minding your business in contract management and source to pay. And now, your host, VP of Product Marketing for Determine, Constantine Limbarakis.
Hello, everybody. Welcome today to our first Determine Out Loud. We are happy to start out the new year with a series of audio blogs that will talk to all the different topics that we come across in our day-to-day affairs in working in source to pay and contract management and technology in general. And today with us on the audio blog, we have a special guest who we know quite well and have worked with frequently, is Kelly Barner from Buyers Meeting Point. Say hello, Kelly.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Excellent. Thank you, Kelly. Part of the reason why we wanted to have this discussion today on our topic, it's really about platforms. You know, as providers, we talk about platforms, but it becomes something as part of our vernacular and something we talk about every day. So let me ask you that, Kelly. I mean, when you're talking about like platforms, is that something that you're hearing about as a buzzword with other companies or, you know, practitioners in the space? What are your thoughts when you hear that word today?
So the interesting thing about platform is that unlike some of the other key topics or themes being discussed within procurement, platform actually comes up more times as a question, because I think it's one of those words that has sort of emerged into more common use, and people aren't 100% sure what it means. And as with pretty much everything else in procurement, you know, there's no official standard industry recognized definition. So to some extent, it's the context that you're seeing the word in. So yes, absolutely, people are more and more discussing platform, but it's an exploratory thing. People are trying to figure out what it means for them in their context and in the solutions that they're working with.
Yeah, I mean, so when we're thinking about this, we're thinking things like, at least from the perspective at Determine, we've said, you know, being able to have our own native code base across a number of different solutions. And I think one of the things that people may gravitate to is the fact that, you can handle everything from front to back on one set of solutions that have been natively developed. Is that typically what you're hearing, or is you know, are people using these terms interchangeably, like suite and application? And, you know, are we just then drinking our own Kool-Aid to think that this is, you know, the term that they should be using?
Yeah, so I think there's probably two most common uses that I'm coming across. In one case, it is something that sort of establishes this idea, sort of like a suite but more rigid, right? So it's this idea that you can handle a series of components or modules that are all intended to work together, and they all have similar factors to their logic and their user interface and how they work and how the data flows. And maybe this is in more mature situations, or maybe it's just people with more experience discussing technology in the space. In some cases, platform actually is deeper than that, and it's sort of an underlying technology that allows all of this connected functionality and data and information and process flow to exist on top of it. So those are probably the two most common meanings. You get sort of the casual idea, platform means, you know, I can do everything from one place. And it's a little bit more tightly coupled, all of the components, than you would think of necessarily in a suite. But in some cases, you really are looking at that underlying technology, whether it's a native code base or not, and you're considering what that actually means for how cohesive all these pieces are and where the information lives that all of the pieces draw off from.
Yeah, that's something that we're hearing quite a bit as well. And, you know, there's just a lot of different angles that people can take and saying, well, I have a platform and I have a platform. And, you know, these are all the different things that you could say define it. What's the, you know, one valuable thing that if I have the ability to say, okay, this is the most important thing I need, forget the fact that, you know, we're in IT, and say we're having, you know, a practitioner who's in procurement that's basically saying, look, I need to pick a solution. I'm hearing all this talk about suites and applications and, you know, point solutions and best of breed. You know, I don't really know where to go. All I need to know is I need to know that I need users to adopt this solution, and I need to make sure I can integrate this with the solutions that my ERP, you know, it can integrate with the ERP I have, and, you know, my IT is happy. So if you had to say like one thing to like kind of recommend, what would that be in saying, okay, if I'm going to use this approach, what would be like one of the main things that you would recommend to people based on, all the things that you're hearing?
So I think for me, it would be based on intent to grow. And I don't mean in terms of head count. To tell you the truth, I don't even mean in terms of the percentage of spend or spend categories that are brought under management. Mm-hmm. I mean more grow in the sense of evolving how you actually address the spend that is being managed. So you're looking to be more complete end-to-end. You're looking to take more mature approaches. To me, if you can look at where you are and say, whether we have growing pains today or not, there's a clear intent to make this organization more influential and more mature. Now you know you need to have something that is designed to support that kind of scalability without every single time you want to do something new, you're going through this painful extension or you're going back to the drawing board and having to integrate something. If you know you're looking to grow and expand and evolve, you do want to be working sort of inside of an ecosystem that is designed to grow with you as your needs change.
Yeah. And I think the term that I think we've used is modularity and expandability, kind of like the jigsaw puzzle. I would have to agree with you on that too. It's something that we're continuing to hear, and I'm glad you agree with us on kind of that approach. Without getting too technical, if that's the one thing, I think that more often than not, it just makes sense to anybody who would be involved in the process. Let's take this a move to a different direction. And one of the things that we've talked about that that I know that we've thought in the past is this notion of a practitioner, again, then a practitioner's perspective. And I think an analogy that you used in terms of, okay, I'm new to this space, or I need to jump in the space. I need to select a new solution. We're trying a new initiative. And you used, and I really like this, I thought this really worked well, was this notion of snow bunnies versus real pros. And tell me a little bit more about that, because I think it's something that might be really good to share with the listeners today, like this notion of snow bunnies versus real pros. Maybe you could explain that a little bit more to me. Sure.
And we'll beg everybody's patience a little here. I absolutely promise this connects back to SourceToPay. So I live in west of Boston, so there's a fair amount of skiing, even little kids. I mean, if you live in an area where there's Little League, in my area, we also have the Little League equivalent of skiing. And one of the lessons that you learn early on when you're selecting your cold weather gear and all of the different pieces of equipment that you'll be working with is that one of the rookie mistakes people will often make when they're buying their initial set of stuff is they want everything to coordinate. And they'll say, okay, I'm going to go with like a purple and a gray, or I'm going to go with a green and a black. And everything from the hat to the ski boots to the bindings to the poles to the jacket, everything matches. And that's actually the best way to peg the person on the mountain that has no idea what they're doing, because they've got this sort of like bland assemblage of things that were picked for the wrong characteristic. Because sure, you want to look good skiing as much as you want to look good anywhere ever, but it's none of that's going to make you a better skier. Versus if you look at someone who has selected each component of their clothing and their gear for its performance contribution, you're going to get somebody that looks absolutely crazy because they've got purple and orange and black and red and blue, but looking at them, and usually it's backed up by how well they actually ski, you can tell that they dismissed color. Color has absolutely nothing to do from a performance contribution standpoint. They looked for strength, they looked for wear, they looked for ease of cleaning or maintenance. And I think it actually it offers us something when we're talking about all of these modules versus the suite versus the platform type of look, that in some cases, you can see why somebody might say, oh, geez, I don't know, if I'm just going to bring every single thing in off the same platform, am I making my decision based on the wrong characteristic? Is simplicity of integration, of contract, of relationship management, is that the wrong reason to make the selection to go with a platform solution, as opposed to going with a whole bunch of point solutions that are absolutely the best in their area, but then you have to facilitate the communication and the process flow between them. And at the end of the day, when you're evaluating these different platforms, it actually forces you to divide out what's user interface, right? So what's just, oh, it's nice to me that every screen roughly has buttons in the same place, versus what's a platform that offers me value because all of these pieces somehow work cohesively in a way that allows me to do something that I would not be able to do if I had a whole bunch of point solutions smashed together. And I think maybe the other end of the analogy, that if you think, what is the only case where everything is going to coordinate and also they're going to be a fantastic skier, is now you're talking about the pros. These are people that are competing nationally or internationally. These are people that are on the Olympic ski team. They're in a situation where it's almost like a small-scale mass customization, right? Everything on them is going to match because they have a set of sponsors and everything has been designed for them. So in their case, that's sort of an example of where you can say, all right, I see how this platform offers value because you're getting performance. You don't have to sacrifice there. But there's also a sense of cohesion and there's the acceptance benefit or the adoption benefit of having things in the same place, of having common logic available for how things are saved and named and searchable. And so I think when it comes down to, you opened by saying, is platform a buzzword? To practitioners, it's only a buzzword if we tolerate it being used as a buzzword. If people are saying platform and all that means is that, everything's green, that offers us no value whatsoever. But if everything is a platform because there's a strong central hub of really clean data that gets leveraged by a bunch of different functionalities that can be used by people across the organization, well, now you have a situation where platform means something. It offers some kind of value to procurement and to the rest of the organization.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's really helpful for a lot of folks. And I think the analogy works really well because, if you're starting out at the beginning, you may want to do that layaway plan and say, I want to buy that stuff that really works together really well right now. And then I'm going to start building onto that because I know which is going to be the most important thing for me because I really want the good boots first, and then I may want the skis, and then I may want the jacket that all work well together. So, and that's that modularity I think that we talked about before, and I think that works well for folks that might be just starting out. So with that, we'll conclude our first blog, audio blog here today. And thank you so much, Kelly, for joining us. Are you going to be hitting the ski slopes this weekend, or is that just something that is hopeful?
Oh, no, I may be hitting the ski slopes. Right now, we've actually had an odd batch of kind of warm weather, so they're a little squishy right now. But it's close enough that wouldn't stop me from going over there and having hot chocolate. We'll just wait for it to snow. We're just hanging waiting for more snow to come back. So it's only a matter of time.
I've got to go get some new ski boots myself. So with that, we will conclude. And again, thank you, everybody, for joining us. And have a great day. Bye-bye.